We're happy to have Violet Abtahi here on the podcast today. She is the founder and CEO of Platonic, blockchain native infrastructure that turns static assets into autonomous instruments. She's a visionary builder, reshaping finance into a seamlessly interconnected intelligent system that unlocks value across the global economy. Violet, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here with you guys.
Excited to have you on.
Yeah.
Why don't maybe to kick it off, let's start with tell us about your background and kind of bring us to where you are today. Tell us about what you're building right now.
Definitely. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background, but the most important thing, you guys had a very good question that I loved in the questions that you sent me. And one of them was, what do you want the world to know? So what is your why, right? And I think I'm going to tap into that a little bit, and then we can get all technical and all fintech and all finance and blockchain as you guys want.
I love it.
But technically, my background comes from, I've always loved mathematics and economy and finance, and I was in the traditional finance world, and I stepped into technologies and innovation a few years back in 2013 when someone sent me the white paper of Bitcoin, and I was like, my goodness, there is a world in which everyone can have access. So that's where I come from, and I think we see an incredible vision of the future unfolding in the world of economy and finance. And what we saw lacking and missing was the infrastructure that can support the legacy assets to join that future. So that's what we're building at Platonic, and I'm going to get into that a little bit deeper. But the most important thing for me and for us, and what separates us and what separates you guys and everyone, is when we step away from blockchain and from AI and from fintech and from funds and bonds and everything. The only reason we're here is to love one another. We're here, and all of our ambitions, everything that we strive for, every fame that we want, every voice that we want, every company that we build is for an opportunity to be able to love and to be loved. At the end of the day, you put any human being in a mansion and give them trillions of dollars of wealth by themselves, it's not going to do you any good. You'd rather be, in a tent, but have 2 or 3 people who can love you. So our mission is to make it easier to love each other. Our mission is to make the world a place where we can offer each other and share with one another. Share these economies, share these assets that are sitting there, enable people in the world who are struggling for their lunch, for funding their child's health care, for holding each other and holding space for one another easier. So we take a deep breath into that, and the fact that we're privileged enough to wake up to this, to wake up to the fact that there's nothing but love, and every other emotion, fear, hope, bravery, strength, intellectuality, they're all just derivatives of this beautiful divine love that we have for each other and for one another. And with that, I am ready to begin with you and talk about the vision of this beautiful future where we can hopefully manifest all or a portion of this and create a world where we can more easily thrive and love this way.
Yeah, I love it.
Great.
Yeah. Appreciate you taking us there. Tell us about your love for like silence in meditation. Tell us, how'd you get into that side of things?
Yeah. So, interestingly enough, I was born into that. I have a family who's very spiritual, and I think before I learned how to walk, I was cross-legged in a meditation pose, and before I know how to run, I was in yoga poses. So it's not something that I want to take a lot of pride in, something that I have gained, that I have sought for. I was born into it, but I think there is a moment in time where you tap into it on your own.
Yeah.
And when I was in the heat of my New York life and finance and success and how do I take the next step and all that hustle and bustle, there was a moment of pause that the city went dark for a few days. And I was stuck on the 21st floor of an apartment building with nothing, with a piano, a few candles, and a little magazine I had brought from a plane home, in which I read about a lot of the pain that still exists in the world. and photos that just made me feel like, how can we be any separate from one another? And the journey begins, for each of us in a different place. But I moved to California and I sat my first silence, and I couldn't believe that, like, all these years, and I have never intentionally sat in silence. And silence isn't just not speaking, right? Silence is just breathing in this air that contains millions of years of evolution and consciousness, and knowing that you're a part of it all and there is no separation. So, given the nature of the work that we do, which is a lot of equations and it's a lot of problem solving and it's a lot of excitement and it's a lot of fast pace and a lot of technology and a lot of opposition and then a lot of coming together, sitting in that quiet space really helps me to remember, right? And come back to the why that we're here. And that has helped me to not be afraid. Or when I am afraid, to remember not to be, because there's nothing to fear. There's nothing to be anxious about. We're all here to build something amazing together. And each of us is just taking on a small piece of that puzzle. And when we breathe, magical things happen. So that cushion has done a lot of good work for me to connect to the voice that doesn't use words.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I think that's, and what you said earlier, just about connectivity to others, and the mind-body connection too. It's pretty interesting, right? And we're all in this hustle and bustle of life. Everything's moving so fast, but to slow things down and kind of be in the moment, I think is really cool.
Yes.
I like that.
There's a great friend of mine who is who's sat alongside a lot of people who have been in their deathbeds, like thousands, as a physician and great brother, and he talks about the fact that in that moment we're all in the same place, and all we carry is the love in our hearts. So, and for that, we sometimes need some quiet to remember.
Yeah, for sure, right? Especially kind of what we do with all this stuff that's technology, things are changing so fast. There can be that fear as well as overwhelming of what's happening in the world. But that's really cool. I'm curious how, obviously, your background and where you started and how you connecting to others. We're in a very connected, time of life in the world where everybody's kind of moving very fast, finding ways to connect. But at the same token, we're so far away with people are always on their phones. And how do you, how did the vision come together with kind of where you started and where you kind of ended up from starting this company, and how did that vision come to fruition, if you will?
Absolutely. I think there is 2 points that, as always, they just come together and they meet somewhere in the middle, and that's where magic sparks. Mm-hmm. And one end of this spectrum for me was the fact that I've always been thinking about what is innovation, and you kind of ponder upon some of these words. And with innovation, what we have done really is traveling through space-time faster. Right, from the innovation of the wheel to the rockets and cars, all the way to the phones, where you and I can just instantly break through space-time barriers and be together in this moment. In the past world, it would have taken us days and weeks maybe to get together, right? So we want to move at a faster pace and break through these barriers with innovation. And that's what we're doing with everything, just faster, sooner, more. But why? So that we can free up more time to be together and to be in awe and wonder of this beautiful planet and everything that it has to offer us. So on one end, a part of me, that brain side of me that's always looking for an equation to solve for everything, was run. And I was just like, began in the world of AI and the fast pace of everything, and the magic of that innovation really makes my heart sing. All of us, right? That's why we're having this conversation, because it's pretty incredible. But then on the other side of it, what was amazing was the faster we were moving and the more we were innovating, like over, a decade of being in this world now, the less time we're getting together, right? And it didn't seem like life is getting better, at least for me and the people around me. And we are amongst some of the most fortunate people in the world, right? So how does it work for some other people? So bringing it all together, what I saw was that autonomous cars really moved me in a way that I realized, oh my goodness, we have an analog car and we have hundreds of thousands of them on the road and they don't communicate. and there's no intelligence, right? There's nothing. There's no web of information. There's no web of connectedness. All of a sudden, you attach autonomy and you attach intelligence, and you make these cars programmable, and there's a web of information communicating with one another. Hundreds of thousands of people, instead of sitting behind the wheels, they can be doing something else. They can be creating art. They can be innovating. They can be attending to their families. Instead of maybe 100,000 cars, we can now have 10,000 cars that can service multiple of us and many of us. So the whole nature of autonomy and how we're innovating in order to be more and more autonomous brought me to the fact that I do believe finance is the bedrock of innovation, right? Capital markets are the bedrock of innovation. Everything we see today in biotech, in healthcare, in rocket science comes from the support of the capital markets, supporting and fueling them. Yet again, capital markets itself stays siloed. Why is that? It was a big question for me. And the answer was very simple. It's the most highly regulated industry on the planet for some right and some wrong reasons. So what if we could create a system that was intelligent and it could maintain the integrity of that regulation and that privacy and everything that we need, and then we could create assets that are autonomous, right? So the two, when they come together, the vision of the future, it's not a distant vision. It is something that is already happening. Like everything else, like the internet and like the age of AI and like the age of autonomy, some people will be early innovators, some are early adopters, some are going to deny and eventually have no choice, but they will jump on the wagon and, voila. But that's where we're headed, right? And we're going to talk about this, but I want to really take this time that we have together to cover how this is not just for the private credit funds and for the mines and for the mortgages and for the bonds. This is going to go all the way to the individual, right? And how that's going to manifest is really, really important. And we can tap into that. I'll let you guys lead the conversation, but that's how it will come together. My love and passion for creating a world that is more connected and that is more abundant and that we can thrive more. And along the way, as you guys know, those who have the same vision, just join.
Yeah. So let's build on that. That's a great starting point. So you mentioned like autonomous cars. Like right now, our cars are just driving. We're driving them. They're not talking to each other. Talk to us about how do you see the capital markets communicating? How do you see them communicating now, and where do you see this going?
See, assets today, the way that or nearly, I mean, these are numbers, but nearly $400 trillion in traditional assets sitting in silos in different economies with different regulations. I cannot even imagine a world where all of these assets were activated and working 24/7. Like in that world, we wouldn't have hungry people. Right. So to me, when I think about an asset, like imagine a house, imagine a car, imagine a bond, imagine a private credit fund. If you put a supercomputer at the heart of this, where it can connect this asset to every other asset. So the value of this asset is no longer what this asset is the intelligent web and the communication that's happening amongst all of these assets. And then this asset has a smart contract, technology where we can write in business logic and we can write the logic of if then, right? We can attach AI and machine learning in a way that grab all this intelligence and create secondary value and tell us what else we can do and create intelligence that we couldn't create otherwise. We can create privacy channels, which is part of our operating system at Platonic. With these privacy channels, you can create decentralization that is managed, that is in consensus, that is not just open to the entire world in a way that you can no longer manage things, but it maintains, again, what we said, the integrity and the privacy of the assets. If you can do these things and then you can put these assets on chain where value can be stored, and we can start trading and using them for collateral and fractionalizing them and selling bits and pieces on them. And we can trade them in different ways and we can use them to fund other innovation and technology. And you name it, like we can write books about this. Then you can distribute the tokens that are the shadow representations of all this activity that is happening into the public space, right? And allow the world to participate in it, allow the world to be a part of it, no matter whether you're an elite or you're someone who just wants to be a part of the future that we're building, you can do that. So I think that is the power of autonomy. And one of the things that I noticed with the dawn of internet, which is really powerful, and I don't know if we speak about this enough, is that with the dawn of internet, we were able to take all the documents and turn them, all the spreadsheets, and turn them essentially into web pages, right? And creating these shadow representations of me and you in many different places and a lot of different assets. Like you can sell a cup on the internet, yes, and you can sell, I don't know, a car, but we cannot store actual value because everything on the internet is a copy. So you cannot actually maintain the integrity of it. With the dawn of blockchain, for the first time ever, we can store the value of that asset without worrying about what's going to happen to the original, because the original is always going to be the original on chain. And that is where the internet of value comes along, where we can take the rest of our assets, and we will talk about an example of a home or a car or something that is more to the individual, but for the financial assets, the same thing. If you can take a private credit fund and you can democratize it, so you and I and everyone else can put in some money in there and be a part of it, right? That we are a part of this big future. And the people who are managing the private credit funds have a much broader access to investors. And then when we have broader access to investors and people who are actually investing it, we can innovate more, we can connect more, we can thrive more.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Violet. Kind of just how that interconnectivity can happen, and you're democratizing access to from Wall Street to Main Street. The person who wants to, maybe have your thing on stag asset like real estate, and they want to unlock that opportunity from a liquidity point of view, which has never really happened before. To your point, right now we're bringing that all together at a unified source of truth, if you will.
A unified source of truth. Yeah, I'm going to use an example, a very layman terms example, and then I'm going to move into the real broad definition of this vision of one single global capital market, which is going to be the future. But imagine if I was on a podcast the other day and we were talking about the fact that for an average human being, for us, right, the biggest asset, if you're very lucky and blessed, is going to be our home and our car. We've worked years and years and years to own that, and we take a lot of pride in it. But then you live in this home and you work for it for 50, 60 years. It cannot offer you anything but, if you're lucky, the safety of just living there. Now imagine being able to have your home, own 80% of it or 90% of it or 60% of it, whatever number you want to keep, and then take that, say 80%, and take the other 20%, tokenize it, and sell these tokens on a trustless market where you don't know who's buying it, but you know that they're vetted and you know that you're going to receive what you're going to receive. Then you can use that 20% while you still own the house. You can use that money that you received to renovate your house, to maybe buy a vacation home somewhere else so that you can enjoy your retirement, so that you can help the wedding of your daughter or the education of your son, so that you can support your health, so that you can do whatever it is that you want to do with this one precious life that you have, right? If we can do that and you still own the house at any point, if this house is sold after you die or while you're alive, well, those tokens and that value will go to the people that own it. The people who buy it can still trade it. The value of your house is going up as people have more and more interest in it, but you're activating your asset by fractionalizing it, right? It's very simple. We can understand this. People went into reverse mortgages. Old people lost their homes and they went into nursing homes because of these problems, because they couldn't fund themselves after years of living with integrity. 4 people from 4 different, another example, for 1% from Hong Kong, 1 from Iran, 1 from South America, 1 from Africa can come together on a platform, sponsor Tesla that is sitting in Texas, Austin, right? And they can put in a little bit of investment in there. This Tesla is going to work 24/7. And at the end of each day, people, not even at the end, simultaneously, people are getting their share of the income that this Tesla is creating into their wallets. And in the meantime, in that little beautiful town of Austin, people are getting rides that are taking their kids home and they're picking up their groceries and maybe picking up medicine for an elderly, or maybe taking someone who's ill and doesn't have anyone to the hospital, and more, take you to a party to dance all night, right? So we create this beautiful shared economy that, yes, it is going to start by the 400 trillion in traditional assets, because that's where we have stored hundreds and thousands of years of working, so that we have created this wealth that belongs to the people of Earth, and we're all going to be working with it. So that's how it's going to go to the end individual. But the way I see the vision is that the future is going to be one single global capital market, right? And we're sitting at the brink of this transformation as this evolution is happening, and it's going to be an autonomous global market, right? Today's infrastructure is fragmented. It's a little bit inefficient, or maybe more than a little bit. I think I have the right to be a little bit more offensive than that. But we're not equipped to support the instant borderless flow of capital that the future demands. And everything from IoT to our cars, to our rockets, to our autonomous planes and trucks, everything is going to require this infrastructure. Nothing is going to even move without having an infrastructure like this. So it's going to happen. So that's basically what we've created. We figured you need an operating system. You don't only need a blockchain infrastructure. You don't only need AI. You don't only need to put one private capital, private fund onto the chain and just scream it out to the world. We need an operating system, right? And a definition of operating system is what iOS came along and Android came along and other assets came that didn't need to store the value necessarily, but for assets, we need an operating system that can support that. So that's where we talk about that native blockchain infrastructure that can turn these static assets, because we give it AI, we give them the capabilities of smart contract technology, we put them on chain, we connect them to distribution systems, and they can autonomously be activated this way.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. It's cool. I like the example with the cars. It's something that's really easy to think about. Where you could, one day in the future we'll be able to tokenize a car, makes $100. Take it to people. You get a portion of that revenue. So I guess let's move into Platonic. So talk to us about what you guys are building at Platonic, and take us from the top. What's your vision with Platonic?
So the vision of Platonic has come through from years and years of a lot of building blocks that have come together in bits and pieces. But it started with obviously the traditional finance world that I was in, that I am forever grateful for. It taught me so much. And then I tapped into the depths into blockchain, and then infrastructure lackings and how do we scale. And then I tapped into the public blockchain space, which is also incredibly beautiful, right? I think the notion of what brought a lot of people to public blockchains was that sense of community, right? Like a lot of people talk about the Web3 people be acting like a cult. It's because we're all yearning for that getting together and that community that we can create no matter who we are and where we are in the world. But when I tapped into the public blockchain side, and I'm still involved in it, we're still building, we're still scaling on that side. What I realized was that a definition of asset, it dawned on me. I know this is going to be like, well, duh, but there's things that click for you in a moment. An asset is its data plus its behavior. Mm-hmm. If you tell me there's a piece of land somewhere, what is the value of that? That's not an asset. But if you tell me there's a piece of land in this coordinate of Earth, and this is the history of it, and this is everything that's around it, and this is all the data that is attached to it, all of a sudden, we have an asset, right? And the behavior of that asset today, for the most part, it's sitting in files and cabinets and somewhere that we can't really access it much. And it takes hundreds of thousands of dollars to transfer them or to do anything with it. So then I was like, okay, well, let's put the asset on chain. But if you put an asset, especially as it comes to financial assets, where a lot of this data goes to who it belongs to, what are the people who transacted it? What happened before us and before this? If you put that data of that asset on chain, a lot of times the value actually dissolves, because the value is in the integrity of the data in some cases, which is absolutely okay. And I don't have any problems with that. But that was when I realized, okay, so we cannot take an asset yet, and just put it on top of a public blockchain, because then that asset will no longer have the value to act and to behave as it is meant to do. So we realized that we need a combination of a lot of different bits and pieces. We need a private blockchain with privacy channels that can, for example, bring in Citi, State Street. I'm just using these as an example, say JP Morgan and Vanguard and Ford together in one space. And while it's decentralized between 4 or 5 parties, no one else has access to this. They come into this. We created vendor agnostic and blockchain agnostic. So they bring all of the data in and they choose which parts of this data and these files they want to share with one another. Based on what they share and what they do, they create a market and they transact together. And the moment they decide that this is finished and say, now JP Morgan is ready to work with Morgan Stanley, the key will rotate to Morgan Stanley. And none of this work needs to be done all over again. And even us who are building this and are behind it, we don't have access to see what's the data on that private chain, because there's only the people who have the private keys have access to that data. It will always be able to be restored, even if no one is working at Platonic anymore and it's just a deserted company. You can still go in and you can retrieve the data and you can retrieve your assets. So it's really giving the power to those who need it, but being able to cross-border and trustless work, because it doesn't have to be amongst the names that we just chose, right? It can be between cross-border. And then again, it starts with the bigger financial institutions, but the idea is to be able to then dial it down all the way to the individual. So that's some of the work that we're doing. And our smart contracts are AI linked. So it's important for us to be able to extract intelligence for the parties that need it. They can come in, they can, a lot of these things, it's incredible how spreadsheet focused they are and the amount of error that happens. Instant settlements don't happen. The amount of capital that can be created by instant settlements, by intelligence activation and being able to create data that otherwise we didn't have, by being able to, without having to upload documents and delete them and go through legal, the billions of dollars or trillions of dollars in operation costs is going into that. So if you have smart contract technology, you write all of your legal, all of your rules, all of your ifs and buts, all of your regulation into that, and you can just throw your documents in there and create this trustless, decentralized ecosystem. All of a sudden, you're talking about autonomous assets. And the fund managers and anyone who is working, the investors, the people who are investing can just come in and tap in and only do the work that they need to do. So we will have a lot more time in our hands to do more of the work that we're really here to do, even on the finance side of things, which I think would be incredible. We're going to see a lot of innovation coming out because of it.
Yeah, definitely. You bring up a lot of interesting points there. Obviously, with the data, as we all know, that's always been a challenge in the private markets, alternative investment industry with data, right? Even getting access to your own data and getting access to it on an ongoing, consistent basis, where it's not just sitting there siloed, to your point, not even be able to utilize it. Now and this is where others have taken an asset, put it on chain, but they forgot about the data. They still have to go back off chain and get that data to bring it back to utilize it to what they need it for, right? So those are definitely interesting points you're bringing up. As challenges that have really been front and center for a long time in our space.
Yeah, and also to make it agnostic, right? Like we could care less who's your underwriter, who you like. Right. Everything is agnostic. We give you an operating system and you can come in and plug and play. And one thing that I do want to say for anyone to listen to this, if anyone gets this far in the conversation and they continue to listen, is that this is not a company. Platonic is something that belongs to me and my team. It is not. It is something that we have started and we want everyone to join. If you want to build on it, we're going to open source this. Not very far from now, right? We want everyone to build on it. We want you to bring your ideas to it. We want you to bring your visions to it. And the idea is not that we're going to build this operating system for all these native new assets to come on chain. That, of course, we're going to do. And a lot of us are doing that. But the idea is to help and create this ecosystem that this hundreds of trillions in traditional assets and markets can join this beautiful revolution that we are on, or transformation would be a better word, that we're going through.
Yeah. So there's obviously a ton of moving pieces. There's different companies, there's different assets, there's different players in the space. Where do you start? Where do you guys kind of see the foundation, and take us through your journey of where you see this going?
Yeah, so we're doing a few things. One of the, you have to always start with, when they say when you have a very, like a big vision, which I think it's been simplified quite enough, but we have to start. I think you guys see a lot of private credit funds, for example, being tokenized, right? The reason for it is that it is the easiest thing for us to tokenize. It's not because it's the most important. It is very important, but it's very easy. And in innovation, because we have these crash cycles. Every time we have, it's innovation, implementation, and there's a crash cycle. And there's a lot of information on this online, but we want to protect the crash cycle as much as we can. So we pick the simplest use cases that we can go through. And the idea is, okay, if we tokenize an asset and we're just going to distribute it or put it on chain, what good is that? Right? But if we can actually tokenize these assets and there's use cases and there's a story to tell and it can move along, that's, I think, where the power is, as we have been talking about today. We're doing a few different things. One of the things that we're really focused on is a private credit fund. And the reason why we chose that is because the person who's doing it is a great friend, a great advisor to Platonic. And I'm not going to name names, but it will come out soon. And just working together has been incredible joy. We've been innovating together. It hasn't been a customer that we're building a solution with. It's been a co-creation. And that's exactly what we're looking for. We're not taking customers. We're just looking for co-innovators and co-creators. And we can build the technology, but we want you to give us your feedback. That's what we're looking for. Another really good example is we're using the Collateral product, right? So you can use your collateral and you can activate it. So all the crash that we saw in the crypto world with FTX and Alameda and all the things that happened was because, ironically, the premise of decentralization ended up being one of the most concentrated and centralized worlds that we have created yet. And so it crashed due to that centralization. So we are working with a few market makers, one of them that's going to launch first with us. And these are the innovators that really have a vision for future, not just we're going to make a buck, it's we're going to make the world a better place. And what we're doing is we're tokenizing the collateral with them, right? So there will never be any fraud. They're not going to just pick up the tokens and everything and vanish from the face of earth and then a few years of prison and then they're out and back in the world. It's not going to happen. So collateral on the crypto side is a big one for us. That product is ready to go and it's an amazing product. We're also doing collateral in a traditional sense, right? The collateral in the traditional world, I think it's the talk of the block everywhere. Towards the end of last year and this year. And it is important if we can tokenize collateral, the amount of work that we can do with it, it's like a child's at play in finance. So that's another product we're working with. An incredible group of people from Chile have reached out to us. They have a lot of mines. So, and what they want to do, it's beautiful. They want to tokenize the mines. And with these tokens, when they launch it into the world, bring in investment to mine the mine, but they're working with the government because this is property of the people, right? And so with this tokenized platform and the way they're going to run it, a portion of all this tokenization and everything that's going to be extracted goes to every citizen that owns a portion of this mine, right? And they're willing to, and they're striving to pull themselves out of poverty with that. And I honor those guys who are working on this, and it's not that difficult. It really is not that difficult. It just gets a group of people who get it to do it. And I can use many other examples, but I think there's a lot of fundraising that can happen on chain, not like the ICO way, but in a different way that can be very transparent. It can be accessible. It can be democratized to a lot of people. And hopefully very soon to be able to tokenize personal assets. I think that is where really our hearts sing for that, because we can support a much broader population.
Yeah, that's really cool to be able to, unlock personal data and opportunity. which hasn't happened before, to your point.
You just hit it on the nail.
Yeah.
Our data, we talk about the cars and the homes, but the real asset is like we are just walking data producers and observers. All we're doing is intake, process, and then output, right? So the moment you are able to create value out of that, I think is when we're going to see a huge transformation.
Yeah, that's exciting. I guess this is obviously fascinating to where you're kind of taking us, Violet. What are some challenges, or who's going to maybe get left behind? What do you see as obviously this is all in cycles, right? Where do you see kind of current state, and where maybe are some headwinds, and how we're trying to navigate away from those challenges?
Oh, challenges, a lot of challenges. There's always challenges. And I think challenges are what cause the innovation, because you have to get out of this maze.
Yep.
And to get out of it, you just think of ways to do it. I think there's resistance. I think there's resistance from, and that's human nature. And I think that's normal, right? We're still resisting getting from our gasoline cars into a Tesla, and we're like, oh, what if it just gets into an accident, right? Like resistance is a part of us. It's a protection mechanism that the ego creates, so it's fight or flight that is embedded in us, and it follows us everywhere, whether it's in blockchain or it's in the center of our home. So there is resistance from some of the traditional players that we speak to a little bit, although everyone has opened up, everyone is doing something, but there's a bit of skepticism into trusting that it's all going to be okay. It's all going to work out and it's all going to happen. So I think education is going to be a huge piece of this, which is the point that I want to take to honor you guys. It takes time and it takes energy and it takes work to put these calls together, to put the questions together, to sit together and have these conversations. But the work that you're doing really matters. It's really important because we need to learn. We need everyone who listens to us to understand how this can help them and how this can support them from every walk of life. There's also, I think, the communication between the innovative solutions we're building and the legacy systems that we want to plug into. There's still challenges. Like, it sounds very easy when we say it, but when you really get to do it, you hit roadblocks, right? Like, we come in, we're about to launch something and we're like 4 weeks behind. And it happens to all of us, but it helps us innovate. So I think there is a lot of challenges, and I don't think we're ever going to be done with challenges because we're constantly going to find them. That's what we do. We find problems and challenges and we just strive to solve for them. But I think if we can just understand and agree that this is for a better world and this is for us to support each other and hold each other, then the willingness will increase. And I think that willingness is important.
Yeah, no, that's great. I appreciate you bringing up the education. I think too, even talking about, you mentioned AI, there's been a lot of fear, uncertainty, specific around different technologies and what it can and can't do, right? So educating yourself, you can dispel a lot of that fear, and understand what.
May I just say one thing about that? I was having this conversation 2 nights ago with a fellow innovator or agent of change as we speak. And what is interesting for me is we talk about AI and all this fear, but the interesting thing is the human entity is an intelligence. We are technology. We have an autonomous nervous system. From our understanding today, we process about 10 to the power of 16 operations per second, which I think is much more than that. Our heart beats, and we're just being alive in itself. Everything we're talking about here is nothing compared to this technology. This is one of the most intelligent things that we know, that quantum computers that has ever been innovated. And yet, whenever this code was written and however we were coded and however we came about, we could do great things and love and innovate. And some of us could go and commit genocides and kill each other. And that comes with any intelligence as well, right? There's going to be choices that we can make. And there's choices, and that's what differentiates us. We're all the same, but the only thing that differentiates us is the choices that we make, the way we decide to wake up every morning and show up in the world. And so is the intelligence that we're creating. Some AI is going to do good and some AI is going to do bad, and it's going to go back to who's managing it and who's running it. And at some point, perhaps running itself, but that's the nature of evolution.
Yeah.
So we can, instead of resisting it, just build it to be as safe and as beautiful as we can.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very well said.
And the noted differentiation. How do you see, like, what are some of the biggest differentiators of the Platonic network?
I love that question. So, I mean, you guys, that's why I said you're more than welcome not to publish this, because it's all going to be about love. Number one is that we are all about love and people and community. And so nothing wrong will ever happen. That's the biggest differentiators we have, that we've got brilliant minds, and I'm going to claim it. We are really brilliant, but boy, if you saw our hearts, that's the number one. Number two, our privacy channels. Our privacy channels are the biggest differentiators, in a way that you can come in as any financial institution with any private data, anything that you wouldn't want to put anywhere but into your own system. But you have to break into bits and pieces and shares with other partners in order to be able to create this financial highways and these transactions, and be sure that the privacy and the integrity of it is maintained. And therefore, it's regulatory compliant in many ways, because it's not compromising. The whole point of regulation is not compromising the privacy, right? It's to keeping the integrity intact. And we can do that. The other differentiator is that we're not just the tokenization engine. We're not just the private blockchain. We're not just connected to public blockchains. We're not just bringing AI. We're building an operating system. It's an operating system that is stack of technologies built on top of each other, where you can come in as whoever you are and however you're playing in the world of finance, plug and play, and literally put a supercomputer inside of your assets, and be able to borderless, cross-border, cross-market, transact with it, take it out, bring it back in, and activate it. So that activation is huge. And again, like, a lot of our technology today is patented, but we're moving towards open sourcing it as a gift to the world soon.
That's awesome. We're just curious, this is obviously more a futuristic question. Where do you see, kind of obviously current state, where do you see us in 5 years from now, based on the current infrastructure? Obviously, you're building something amazing. We're trying to bring forth community, taken from professional to personal. As far as what we're doing here, what does that look like here in 5 years?
Absolutely. I haven't published this yet, but I'll talk to you guys first about it. I see us by 2020-30, not all of it done, but in the process of a single global capital market that is all connected through safe and highways that offer privacy and integrity and regulatory compliance and intelligence and code, and you can just write all the business logic and legal that you want into it. I think 10 trillion plus assets will be activated as autonomous assets, and whether it's real estate or corporate debt, they will be all tokenized, fractionalized, and autonomously managed on chain. About probably 90% of tokenized assets will be stateful, meaning they will react, settle, adapt dynamically instead of sitting idle and in silos. I think AI will power about 50% of global capital allocations. So AI-driven asset management and credit underwriting will replace a lot of the human decision-making for over 50% of capital flows. The global liquidity superhighways will move to 100 trillion plus annually. And on-chain assets will facilitate, in cross-border institution-to-institution capital flows, making traditional finance rails, the way they are today, obsolete, but they will be just joining us in a new world. And I guess all to say that if the first truly autonomous economy will be born, right, and our operating system will govern into our financial ecosystems, enabling real-time commerce, capital allocation, financial coordinations without human intervention, and you name it. That's our vision, and I certainly hope that I am right. I'm going to stick to this story.
Yeah,
great. Yeah.
With that, do you see international regulations being an issue? Obviously we have different leaders in different countries, and how do you see all that aspect?
Of course, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the biggest challenges and resistant points that we see. But what happens at the dawn of internet, when every country was trying to regulate it with their own regulations, right? It is one of those things that kind of like a web like the mycelium web under the planet, right? It all comes together. So from bits and points, these nodes will tap in with regulations of every piece on the planet, and they will self-correct each other. And eventually we will see that all the regulations of every country that we have ever seen eventually comes into the same thing. Let's not steal. Let's do it right. Let's know the timestamp and the history of where the asset has been, and let's work with it and make it better and make it more and thrive. So I think eventually it will take a while, of course, and it will not be as serendipitous as we're talking about it here. But we talk a serendipitous game until we get there.
I like that. That's great. Awesome.
One other thing I want to talk to you about was your team. I know you put together a great team. Kind of how have you thought about going about that, and kind of how have you what about creating your team and the folks that you work with right now?
Oh my God, that's the best part of the work that I do every day. I love the team. They are my family. We're all one big family, but some of us just interact a bit more. But at some point I was thinking about, I've probably interviewed and hired somewhere over 1,500 people in my career.
Wow.
And especially when I was like at the managerial levels, where you like interview too many people and you hire for the districts and all the corporate work that you do. But it took quite a few years to get to the point where you realize that we're all intelligent. We all have the capacity. But when you see the right heart, you don't turn it around. So when it came down to Platonic and the way the story of this company came together and the way the energetic field of the company, the way it all just manifested, I trusted my intuition 100%. God knows how many conversations I've had with folks and how many incredible people I have talked to that are not part of the team today. But every single person who's working on this project is someone who could be anywhere doing anything, making any amount of money, having any number of shares. They all have an amazing track record, as you guys can go and check it out. But if you saw their hearts, they're all here and they soar with supporting humanity, making the world a better place, and doing something that's going to last beyond us. Because let's not kid ourselves, we don't have a very long life here. It's a blink of an eye. But if we can create something that makes life better for others, I think we will probably depart with a smile. So that's the team. It's full of love. It's full of compassion and the brilliance of intelligence of them. I mean, I talked to our CTO about AI for 5 minutes, and next thing I know, at 4 a.m., he's built 15 bots that are coming my way. So the brilliance of I can't even talk the product, the sales and partnership, the head of Tokenizing, all of them. The titles don't even matter. We're all agents of change here.
Yeah.
We're just brilliance with a heart. But so are you guys. That's the reason why I'm talking to the two of you, because we had an introductory call and you're smiling the whole time. What more do I want in a connect? If I'm going to spend an hour, I want to spend it with people whose hearts are open and they're here to do something beautiful. So that's the team, and the two of you are a part of it, and anyone who's listening.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. Yeah. I just had one question too. Obviously, this is kind of amazing what you're building here and the journey and the people you have around you in the community. What would you say to the younger generation or somebody who's coming up, looking into this, that maybe new, that wants to kind of get involved in this journey, shall we say?
I would say that the most magical thing that ever happened to me in this life was a moment that I was fully connected to this divine energy of love, which is the unspoken. And so many of us have tried to, I don't know, play symphonies or paint it on a canvas or write a poem or a book about it. It's impossible. But it's that moment that you hug your beloved, or you just play with your dog, or you just sip on your coffee, or fresh air comes in. Go for what your heart tells you to go for, and it will not fail you. It will not fail you. And if at any capacity I can support you, whether you're a young generation or in the middle of the way looking to do something different, pick up the phone, call me, email me. that's my mission, is to just say that I was there at some point stuck, not knowing what my mission and purpose is in life. And then I realized there's no mission and purpose but to love. But we have this brilliant brain of ours that helps us to innovate and connect beyond space-time together. And innovation is quite fascinating. It's like, you think video games are fun? Wait till you're innovating and you're participating in building. The future is nothing but the story that we write. And it's beautiful to write it. It's beautiful to read it. It's beautiful to participate in it. You can be on any side of this. But if you want to write the future, write it. That's the only thing. Start by writing it and reach out to those who are doing it and ask questions. And let us tell you how many times we have fallen. This seems all serendipitous and I seem to be calm and happy. If you know how many times I've fallen, if you know how much pain I've experienced in life, if you know how many dark nights of the soul we all have had, and how many are ahead of us, but we're all in it together. So go be crazy. Don't fit in a box. Just go be crazy. Don't follow the rules. Go build, go create, go do whatever your heart soars to do.
I love that. That's great. Appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah. Awesome. I think that's a great note to wrap it up. Violet, anything we forgot about? Any last points you want to make?
Yeah, I actually will tell you guys, we are launching a white paper about our operating system that is coming out. This is the first conversation I'm having about it. I didn't tap into all the details, but we're going to send the white paper out. Everyone can read it. A lot of people can build on it. It's very exciting, the technologies that are coming out. The world of finance and economy is on a brink of a new era and a transformation that is unlike anything we have ever seen. So stay tuned. I don't want to say follow us, but come along with us. And if you want to build with us, reach out. If you have something that you're doing that's better than what we're doing, reach out so we can plug it in together. If you want to be part of this future in any way, as a partner, as a team member, as someone who just wants to have a conversation, as someone who wants to be, I love devil's advocate. So please do that as well. But you can reach out to us on the website, and I'm looking forward to a lot of conversations. And I want to thank you guys again for having me here and letting me have this unconventional conversation that brings love and finance together.
Love it. That's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
We'll plug everything down below in the show notes. Your guys' contact information, website and whatnot. And look forward to having you back on in a couple months. Once the white paper's released and once you guys are up and running.
Sounds great. Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful day.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate the time.